Live as if what you desire has already happened. This idea, often attributed to the spirit of Carl Jung's teachings, invites us into a deeper understanding of the psyche and its quiet, powerful role in shaping reality. Jung believed that our inner world, our thoughts, dreams, and archetypes held the keys to transformation, not just within ourselves, but in the external world we inhabit. When we carry ourselves as if our deepest desires have already come true, we align our unconscious with our conscious intentions, allowing synchronicities to unfold. It's not a call to denial or delusion, but to faith, a lived trust in the potential of becoming. Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart, Jung once wrote. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes. By embodying our desires, we awaken to the present moment as a canvas already touched by our hopes. This way of being dissolves the gap between longing and reality, offering peace in place of striving. It is an act of imagination made sacred, a gentle surrender to the belief that our lives are already moving toward wholeness. In living this way, we don't force outcomes but become receptive to them. The future, then, is not a distant land we must conquer, but a seed already planted within us, simply awaiting our faith to bloom. Dear everyone, before we continue the program, if you enjoy this topic, please comment number 1. If you'd like me to create more similar content, comment number 2. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any useful videos. Thank you and wish you all meaningful moments. Have you ever looked in the mirror and asked yourself, not who you are in terms of your job, your family role, or your status, but who you truly are beneath it all? In those quiet moments when no one is watching, no one is expecting, and there's no need to perform, do you recognize the face staring back at you? Or does it feel like you're living someone else's story, shaped by the world's demands rather than your soul's deepest truths? Many of us go through life trapped in invisible cages, expectations from society, old wounds we carry from childhood, and parts of ourselves we've buried to fit in. We succeed, we perform, we please, but deep down something whispers, there's more to you than this. Carl Jung, the great Swiss psychologist, called this the tension between the persona and the shadow. The persona is the mask we wear to survive in society. The shadow is everything we've hidden, denied, or forgotten about ourselves. Jung believed that true healing, true awakening, only begins when we turn inward and confront the shadow, not to destroy it, but to integrate it, to become whole. He once said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. How many of us are being led by unconscious wounds, fears, and forgotten dreams without even realizing it? This video is not just about psychology, it's a spiritual journey. A journey inward, where the answers aren't found in books or titles, but in the forgotten corners of your soul. Together, we'll explore 6 essential steps inspired by Jungian philosophy that will guide you toward reclaiming yourself, from shadow to light, from chaos to clarity. Because only when you awaken to your true nature can you fully step into the life you were born to live. Let's begin this journey, not to become someone else, but to finally remember who you truly are. 1. The mask we wear. Understanding the persona. Imagine you're walking into a room full of strangers. Without even realizing it, your posture shifts, your smile adjusts, your words filter through a silent checklist. What should I say to be liked? How should I behave to be accepted? This is your persona at work. Carl Jung described the persona as the social mask we wear to meet the demands of the world. It's not inherently false. It helps us function, communicate, and belong. But problems arise when we begin to believe that the mask is all we are. From early childhood, we learn what is acceptable and what must be hidden. A boy taught not to cry becomes emotionally distant. A girl praised only for being polite swallows her anger. Over time, these performances become default settings. We forget they are roles and mistake them for identity. The persona is like a well-tailored costume. It fits perfectly for the stage we're on, but it's still a costume. If we wear it too long, we forget who we are beneath the fabric. Jung warned us. The persona is a compromise between the individual and society, but it can become a kind of soul, something we substitute for the real self. Why do we cling to the persona so tightly? Because it keeps us safe. We fear that if we show our true selves, the messy, imperfect, emotional, questioning parts, we'll be rejected. So we curate ourselves. Online, at work, even in relationships. We craft a self that's likable, but often unrecognizable to our own soul. But here's the deeper danger. The more we invest in the persona, the more we exile the parts of ourselves that don't fit the image. These parts don't disappear. They retreat into the unconscious. And there, in the dark, they grow in power and resentment. This is how the shadow is born. But we'll explore that more in section 2. So how do you begin working with the persona? Step 1. Notice when you're performing. Start by asking, am I speaking from authenticity or expectation? Observe moments when you say yes to please others, when you laugh at things that don't resonate, or when you suppress your opinions to avoid discomfort. These are often subtle clues that the persona has taken the wheel. Step 2. Reclaim disowned traits. List the qualities you admire in others but don't express yourself. Assertiveness, sensitivity, creativity, independence. Often, these are parts of you that have been pushed into hiding because they didn't align with your role. Ask, what parts of myself have I sacrificed for acceptance? Step 3. Talk to the mask. This may sound strange, but try writing a letter to your persona. Thank it for protecting you, for helping you survive, but also let it know you're ready to meet your whole self, not just the curated version. Because wholeness doesn't come from perfecting the mask, it comes from learning to take it off. The journey of awakening begins not by adding more to who you are, but by gently peeling away what you are not. Jung reminds us, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, and that journey starts the moment we stop performing and start remembering. To the shadow, embracing the darkness within. If the persona is the mask we show the world, then the shadow is everything we hide behind it. Think for a moment, what do you most try to avoid being seen as? Weak, angry, needy, selfish? What emotions or traits in others make you recoil or judge harshly? These are often reflections of your own shadow, parts of yourself you've pushed out of conscious awareness. Carl Jung defined the shadow as the thing a person has no wish to be. It's composed of qualities, instincts, and memories we've rejected, often because they were deemed unacceptable by family, culture, religion, or even ourselves. The tragic irony is, while we suppress these parts to be loved, their exile often leads to inner conflict, projection, and self-sabotage. We think we're angry at our partner, but we're reacting to the anger we never learned to express. We think we're jealous of someone's success, but we're mourning the dreams we abandoned. We criticize others for traits we unconsciously long to reclaim. Jung's great insight was this: the shadow isn't bad, it's just unintegrated. It includes not only repressed fears and pain, but also dormant strengths, creativity, sensuality, and the wild vitality of the soul. In fact, Jung once said, the shadow is 90% pure gold. But why do we fear it? Because to confront the shadow is to confront ourselves, not as we wish to be, but as we truly are. And yet, this confrontation is where real growth begins, not by destroying the shadow, but by meeting it, listening to it, and integrating it. Here's how you begin. Step 1, recognize your projections. Projection is when we unconsciously place our shadow onto others. If someone deeply annoys or triggers you, ask yourself, what part of me does this reflect that I've disowned? Example, if you find yourself judging someone as too loud or attention-seeking, could it be that you've been taught to suppress your own desire to be seen? Projection is the psyche's way of trying to bring the unconscious into the light. It uses others as mirrors until you're ready to own what you see. Step 2, journal your triggers. Each time you feel an intense emotional reaction, anger, jealousy, shame, pause. Ask, what just got touched inside me? When have I felt this before? What part of me is being awakened that I usually keep buried? Keep a shadow journal, not to judge yourself, but to understand. Patterns will emerge, and with awareness comes power. Step 3, dialogue with your shadow. Yes, talk to it. Imagine sitting across from the part of you that you've locked away. Ask, why are you here? What do you want to tell me? How have I misunderstood or rejected you? This practice, called active imagination, was one of Jung's most powerful tools. When you give voice to the shadow, it becomes less monstrous and more human. Often it says, I'm not here to destroy you. I'm here to make you whole. Step 4, create rituals of integration. Shadow work is emotional and energetic. It benefits from ritual, writing letters you don't send, drawing what you feel, or meditating with imagery that symbolizes the shadow. Art, dance, even screaming into a pillow, these primal expressions allow you to embody what words cannot always express. The key is to give safe space to what's been suppressed. The gift behind the darkness. The greatest myth is that spiritual growth is all love and light, but Jung taught us that without descent, there can be no ascent. In mythologies across cultures, from the Egyptian duat to the Christian descent into hell, the soul must pass through darkness to be reborn. The shadow is your personal underworld, but hidden within it is the treasure of your authenticity, your fire, your unclaimed power. Jung said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. When you face the shadow, you stop running, you start living. You realize that the parts you were taught to fear are often the parts you most need to reclaim. Imagine no longer being afraid of your own emotions. Imagine not being triggered, but instead curious about what lives beneath the reaction. That's the beginning of liberation. 3. The inner marriage, uniting the masculine and feminine within. So far, we've uncovered the persona, the mask we wear, and the shadow, the parts we hide. But even as we strip these layers back, many of us find ourselves torn between conflicting inner energies. We may feel driven yet disconnected, nurturing yet unheard, logical yet emotionally overwhelmed. This tension is not a flaw. Carl Jung called this sacred process the inner marriage. At the heart of Jungian psychology lies the belief that each of us carries both masculine and feminine energies, animus and anima, regardless of our biological sex or gender identity. These are not about stereotypes or roles, but about archetypal energies that shape our psyche, emotions, relationships, and spiritual path. To grow into our full self, we must bring these inner opposites into conscious relationship, not domination or suppression, but balance, respect, and integration. What are the anima and animus? The anima is the feminine aspect within the male psyche, associated with intuition, receptivity, nurturing, emotion, sensuality, and creativity. The animus is the masculine aspect within the female psyche, linked to logic, structure, assertiveness, direction, and action. But these energies are not limited by gender. Every human has both, and the health of our inner life depends on how harmoniously they interact. When the anima is denied, we become cut off from our feelings. We over-intellectualize. We lose the capacity to surrender and trust. When the animus is repressed, we become passive, indecisive, afraid to assert boundaries or act on our convictions. Jung believed that inner maturity requires the integration of both, a psychological and spiritual marriage that leads to wholeness. Signs of inner imbalance. Ask yourself, do I struggle to make decisions or take action? Underdeveloped animus. Do I suppress my emotions to appear strong or rational? Repressed anima. Do I rely solely on logic and dismiss intuition? Or vice versa? Do I sabotage relationships by projecting unrealistic expectations onto partners? These imbalances often manifest as external conflicts, but their roots are internal. We project the undeveloped aspects of ourselves onto lovers, friends, leaders. We fall in love with traits we lack. We resent what we suppress. Jung said, the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. But without a conscious relationship with our anima or animus, we attract not transformation, but repetition. The path to inner union. Step 1. Identify the voices. Tune in to the inner dialogues you experience. You may notice two distinct voices, one that urges you to act, plan, control, another that longs to rest, feel, flow. These are not enemies. They are complementary energies that, when honored, become the foundation of inner harmony. Journaling, meditation, or expressive writing can help you give voice to each side. Ask, what does my inner masculine feminine want to tell me? Where have I ignored or overemphasized either energy? What would balance look like in my current life situation? Step 2. Engage with the archetypes. Archetypes are symbolic patterns of energy that exist across cultures and myths. Working with archetypes can activate the dormant energies within you. To awaken the anima, connect with symbols of the moon, water, the muse, the mother, the priestess. Practice receptivity, emotional honesty, body awareness. To activate the animus, engage with solar energy, fire, the warrior, the architect, the philosopher. Take clear action. Dreams, myths, and even films often reveal which energy is active or seeking expression. Notice what characters, symbols, or dynamics appear repeatedly in your psyche. Step 3. Heal the wounded masculine and feminine. Many of us carry inherited distortions of these energies. The wounded masculine may show up as control, domination, emotional suppression, or aggression. The wounded feminine may express as self-sacrifice, manipulation, helplessness, or overdependence. To heal them, we must recognize how our culture, upbringing, or trauma shape these energies and choose to rewrite the pattern. Intermarriage is not about becoming perfectly balanced. It's about recognizing and relating to your inner energies with awareness and care. Step 4. Practice symbolic union. Jung encouraged what he called active imagination to facilitate the inner marriage. One exercise: visualize your inner masculine and feminine figures meeting in a sacred space, a forest, temple, ocean shore. Let them speak. Let them acknowledge each other. Let them reconcile. This imagery is powerful. You may be surprised by the emotions that arise. Sometimes, the feminine resents being silenced. The masculine may feel burdened with over-responsibility, but when they meet as equals, transformation begins. The alchemy of wholeness. When the inner marriage begins to take root, your external world changes. You become less needy for validation because you are both nurturer and protector to yourself. You no longer project your unlived energies onto partners. You embody them. You stop swinging between extremes and begin walking the middle way, grounded in your full humanity. Jung saw this as a sacred act of psychic alchemy, where opposites are merged to birth something greater than the sum of their parts, the self. In many mystical traditions, this union is symbolized as the sacred marriage of heaven and earth, sun and moon, spirit and matter. It's not just psychological, it's divine. The 4, the path of individuation, becoming who you truly are. Once the mask begins to slip, the shadow starts to speak, and the inner opposites move toward union, we stand at the threshold of the most profound journey in Carl Jung's psychological and spiritual vision: individuation. But what exactly is individuation? In simple terms, individuation is the process of becoming your whole, true self. Not the self that was shaped to please others, not the one conditioned by culture, wounded by upbringing, or edited for survival, but the deep, eternal self that lies beneath all roles, fears, and illusions. It is not about becoming special, it is about becoming authentic. It is not about escaping life, but embracing it with soul. As Jung wrote, individuation means becoming an individual, and insofar as individuality embraces our innermost, last, and incomparable uniqueness, it also implies becoming one's own self. It is not a destination, but a lifelong journey, a spiral of unfolding layers, trials, and transformations that lead you ever closer to your inner center. The call of the self. The journey begins with a sense that something is missing, even when life looks fine on the surface. A quiet unrest, a subtle dissatisfaction, a longing for meaning beyond success, security, or status. This is not dysfunction. This is the self calling you home. Jung saw the self not just as the conscious I, but as the totality of the psyche, both conscious and unconscious, personal and transpersonal. It is the central archetype, the unifying force behind all growth, healing, and wholeness. Think of it as your inner compass, always guiding you toward your unique truth. The stages of individuation. Though the process is nonlinear and deeply personal, Jung outlined key stages that can help illuminate the path. 1. Confronting the persona. As discussed in Section 1, this is the beginning, where you realize the life you've built may not reflect your true self. You start shedding roles, questioning assumptions, and seeking deeper authenticity. This stage often feels disorienting, as if the ground beneath you is shifting. But that confusion is necessary. It cracks open the door to transformation. 2. Encountering the shadow. As covered in Section 2, facing the shadow is the next critical step. You begin to recognize and integrate the disowned parts of yourself, your fears, anger, vulnerability, unexpressed desires. Rather than trying to fix or erase these parts, individuation invites you to embrace them as essential pieces of your wholeness. 3. Integrating the anima animus. As we explored in Section 3, you begin to balance your inner masculine and feminine energies, fostering inner harmony, creativity, and clarity. This internal marriage empowers you to stop projecting and start embodying. 4. experiencing the midlife crisis. Many individuals enter a deeper phase of individuation during what we call a midlife crisis, though it can happen at any age. It's not just about getting older, it's about the death of the false self. You may feel empty, lost, or uncertain. What once mattered no longer satisfies. This is not a breakdown, it is a breakthrough. It is the soul demanding a new relationship with life, truth, and purpose. The emergence of the self. Gradually, a new center of being begins to emerge, not driven by ego, but by essence. You start living from inner guidance rather than external pressure. You stop chasing wholeness and begin inhabiting it. You accept that you are both light and dark, strength and vulnerability, stillness and storm. This stage is often accompanied by profound creativity, spiritual insight, and a deepening connection to life itself. Obstacles along the way. Individuation is not a straight line. It is filled with paradoxes, pain, and resistance. You may face fear of rejection when shedding the persona, emotional turbulence when encountering the shadow, loneliness as old identities and relationships fall away, cognitive dissonance when inner truths conflict with societal norms. This is the cost of freedom. But as Jung put it, there is no coming to consciousness without pain. Every obstacle is an initiation, designed not to destroy you, but to refine you. Practices for supporting individuation. 1. Dream work. Jung considered dreams the royal road to individuation. They are the language of the unconscious and often contain messages from the self. Keep a dream journal. Look for recurring symbols. Ask, what is trying to emerge? Treat your dreams not as puzzles to be solved, but as conversations with the soul. 2. Active imagination. This Jungian technique involves dialoguing with inner figures, symbols, or images that arise in dreams or meditations. Let your unconscious speak through writing, art, or visualization. It's a way of entering into relationship with the deeper parts of yourself, beyond logic or ego. 3. Solitude and reflection. Take time regularly to be alone, not to isolate, but to listen. Silence is the gateway to the self. Journaling, nature walks, or contemplative prayer can help you tune in to the deeper currents within. 4. Seek mentorship or therapy. A Jungian-oriented therapist, spiritual guide, or mentor can help you navigate the complexity of the journey. The path is uniquely yours, but you don't have to walk it alone. The gift of individuation. When you commit to individuation, life becomes a sacred unfolding. You are no longer merely surviving, you are evolving. You don't just react to life, you respond with awareness, integrity, and depth. You discover that meaning is not something you find, it's something you create, moment by living in alignment with your deepest truth. As Jung said, the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely, but it is also the most liberating. 5. Archetypes and the myth. You're living. Have you ever felt like your life keeps repeating the same story, with different people, different places, but strangely familiar patterns? Maybe you always end up playing the caregiver, the rebel, the victim, the rescuer. Maybe you're drawn to the same types of relationships, the same failures, the same dreams. Carl Jung believed this wasn't coincidence, it was archetypal energy at work. And to truly understand yourself and transform your life, you must learn to recognize the myth you're unconsciously living. What are archetypes? Jung described archetypes as universal patterns or energies that exist in the collective unconscious. They are primordial blueprints of human experience, ancient and symbolic forms that shape how we think, feel, and act. They're not personal. They're transpersonal, existing across cultures, eras, and even dreams. Think of the archetypes as characters in the great story of life. The hero, the mother, the wise old man, the trickster, the innocent, the outcast, the warrior, the mystic. We don't choose archetypes, they move through us. And if we're unaware of them, they can possess us, causing us to unconsciously enact stories that aren't fully ours. Living inside a story you didn't write. Many people spend their lives trapped in archetypal patterns they inherited or absorbed unconsciously. A woman raised to be selfless may live as the martyr, neglecting her own needs until she collapses. A man praised only when he achieves may be consumed by the hero, terrified of failure, unable to rest. Someone hurt in childhood may embody the wounded child, attracting situations that repeat that original pain. Jung called this being lived by the archetype. You're not in control, it is. The key to individuation is to become conscious of the archetype, not to destroy it, but to recognize it, work with it, and eventually transcend it. How to identify the archetypes at work in you? Start by reflecting on what roles do you always find yourself in, especially during stress or conflict? What kinds of people or situations do you feel drawn to or repelled by? What myths, stories, or characters have always captivated you? For example, if you resonate with characters like Frodo, Neo, or Harry Potter, the hero may be strong in you. If you're drawn to the wisdom of shamans, monks, or witches, the mystic or sage may be active. If you feel like the world never understands you and you keep people at a distance, the outsider may be your dominant lens. Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." By seeing the archetypes, you reclaim authorship of your life. Shadow archetypes, the hidden side of the myth. Every archetype has a light and a shadow. The lover can bring passion and connection, but in shadow becomes obsessed or codependent. The ruler may provide order and leadership, but in shadow becomes tyrannical or rigid. The caregiver can nurture others deeply, but in shadow becomes resentful, manipulative, or self-erasing. If you've been living in an archetype unconsciously, chances are you've also been living in its shadow. The goal is not to kill the archetype, but to balance it, to let it inform your life, not control it. The myth you're living. Jung once asked a profound question. What is the myth you are living? He believed that we are all living out stories, some chosen, some inherited, some imposed by culture, trauma, or belief. To awaken is to ask, is this the story I want to be living? Whose myth am I repeating? What would it look like to write a new one? This inquiry is not just psychological, it's existential. Because if you don't know the myth you're living, you might end up climbing someone else's mountain, only to find it's not your view from the top. Working with archetypes, practical steps. 1. Track your patterns. Keep a journal where you reflect on recurring themes in your life, conflicts, dreams, relationship roles, inner voices. Ask, what archetypal roles do these reflect? You might notice you switch between the hero and the orphan or the sage and the rebel, depending on your environment. 2. Study myths and stories. The stories that most move or haunt you are often mirrors of your soul's archetypal landscape. What myths have stayed with you since childhood? What books, films, or legends give you chills? These contain keys to your inner narrative. 3. Work with symbols and dreams. Archetypes speak in symbolic language. Dreams, synchronicities, and even spontaneous images in meditation can reveal which forces are active in your psyche. A lion may symbolize courage and sovereignty, king. A snake might indicate transformation, healer, or deceit, shadow trickster. Learn to interpret them not literally, but symbolically. 4. Consciously evolve the role. Once you recognize an archetype, you can begin to evolve it. If you've lived as the caregiver, ask, what would it mean to give to myself too? If the hero dominates, ask, can I still have value when I rest? This is the beginning of becoming not just a character, but the author of your myth. The archetype of the self. Ultimately, Jung taught that all archetypes point toward one ultimate integration, the self. The self is not just another character, it is the center around which all archetypes revolve. When you've honored each archetypal energy, when the warrior learns peace, the lover finds self-respect, the magician accepts the limits of knowledge, the self begins to emerge in clarity. In that space, you no longer live by old scripts. You become the living myth, consciously, creatively, courageously. 6. The return. Living as your whole self in the world you've walked through the layers. You've seen the mask fall away, met the shadow in its darkness, reconciled the inner masculine and feminine, faced the archetype shaping your life, and stepped closer to the true self. Now comes the most difficult and most vital part of the journey, the return. In mythic traditions, this is the moment when the hero, the mystic, the wanderer who has crossed into the underworld or the wilderness returns to the world with the elixir. The gift of transformation isn't meant to be hidden away, it's meant to be lived. But how do you return to everyday life after awakening to something deeper? How do you show up in a world that may not understand your transformation? Carl Jung knew this challenge well. He wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But he also knew that living that truth consistently, honestly and courageously was a spiritual challenge of its own. Why the return is so challenging. When we begin this work, it often starts in private, a journal, a dream, a deep conversation, a crisis. The transformation is inward first, but eventually the new consciousness wants to manifest. And that means changing the way we live, saying no to what once defined us, speaking up where we used to stay silent, walking away from relationships or careers that no longer align, embracing uncertainty, imperfection, and vulnerability in public view. Returning means risking misunderstanding, judgment, even loneliness. But it also means becoming free. From seeker to servant, there is a deep truth in spiritual psychology. Healing is not complete until it overflows into service. Not service as performance, not martyrdom, but the quiet radiance of someone living in alignment with their soul. When you return to the world as your whole self, you bring authentic presence into your relationships. You no longer react from wounds, but respond from awareness. You become a mirror for others, not by preaching, but by being. Jung said, "You meet your destiny on the road you took to avoid it. By living your truth, you inspire others to begin their own path, whether they know it or not." Practices for grounding your awakening. Transformation is not a lightning strike. It's a slow burn, a daily tending. To live what you've discovered, build rituals of return into your life. 1. Live symbolically. Bring symbolic meaning into your daily routine. Place a small object on your desk that reminds you of your shadow work. Wear a ring that symbolizes your commitment to truth. Light a candle each morning to mark the inner sunrise. This helps anchor the invisible work in visible form. 2. Speak from soul. In conversations, speak not to impress, but to connect. Let your words be less about opinion, more about essence. Dare to say, "I don't know," or "I feel," or "this matters to me." Living from soul means showing up as you are, not the version you think people want. 3. Find a soul tribe. Not everyone will understand your journey, and that's okay. But seek out at least a few kindred spirits who speak the language of depth, growth, and self-inquiry. Whether through a book club, online circle, therapist, or spiritual group, you are not meant to walk alone. Community doesn't complete you, but it supports you. 4. Create soul-aligned work. If your career feels hollow after awakening, don't panic. You don't need to quit everything. But ask, how can I bring more truth into what I do? How can I serve with integrity, not just productivity? Over time, your path may shift. What you offer to the world becomes not just a skill, but an expression of your being. 5. Practice loving boundaries. Living as your whole self means disappointing people who only knew your mask. That's part of the process. You are not here to please, you are here to be. Say yes only when it's a soulful yes. Say no with kindness, not apology. Boundaries are not walls, they are bridges to a more honest life. The new myth you create. Jung believed that once we stop living unconsciously, we begin to create a new myth, a personal mythology grounded in truth, not programming. It's no longer about achieving or escaping, proving or performing. It's about embodying the sacred in the ordinary. It's about washing the dishes with presence, holding space for a friend without fixing, looking at the moon and remembering who you are. This is the great return, to life, to body, to breath, to this moment. You are the elixir. In myth, the hero returns with the treasure. In reality, the treasure is you, more whole, more conscious, more alive. Your journey through shadow, through paradox, through pain, was not to make you better. It was to make you real. You are not here to be perfect. You are here to be present. The world doesn't need more masks. It needs people who've touched their depths and returned with open hands and hearts. As Jung once said, the world will ask you who you are. And if you don't know, the world will tell you. But now you know, and that knowing is sacred. Live it. You've just walked a path few are willing to take, the path inward. You've faced illusions, embraced your darkness, and glimpsed the golden thread of your deeper self. Now the question is no longer, who am I supposed to be? It becomes, am I willing to live as who I truly am? If this video resonated with something deep inside you, don't let the insights fade. Anchor them. Leave us a comment. What part of your soul are you reclaiming today? Like this video if it gave voice to what you've long felt but couldn't name. Subscribe and turn on the bell so you never miss an episode of insight, myth, and cosmic wisdom. Share this video with someone who's ready to begin their own return. This is Galactic Wisdom, where consciousness expands and the inner universe awakens. Until next time, walk gently, breathe deeply, and remember who you are.